Australia's infamous backpacker killer. Ivan Robert Marko Milat, infamously known as the backpacker killer, is one of Australia's most notorious serial killers. Between 1989 and 1993, Milat preyed on young backpackers travelling through New South Wales, leaving a trail of terror that shocked the nation. This is the story of his horrifying crimes, the investigation that brought him down, and the lasting impact on Australia. Milat's victims were mostly young backpackers hitchhiking through the Belanglo State Forest in New South Wales. 7 bodies were discovered between 1992 and 1993, with the victims showing signs of brutal torture and execution-style killings. Among the victims were young travellers from Germany, Britain and Australia, including Caroline Clark, Joanne Walters, Gabor Neugebauer, Anya Habshid, Deborah Everest, James Gibson and Simone Schmidl. They were lured into Milat's vehicle under the guise of a friendly ride, but met gruesome fates. Even Milat preyed on vulnerable hitchhikers, often offering rides to isolated destinations. He used his charm and seemingly helpful demeanour to gain their trust, only to unleash unspeakable violence upon them once they were trapped. Milat specifically targeted young travellers, often backpackers unfamiliar with the dangers of hitchhiking in remote areas. He would pick them up along highways where they were far from help. The forest became Milat's hunting ground and graveyard. Isolated and dense, it provided the perfect cover for his heinous crimes. Milat would drive his victims deep into the forest, where their screams would go unheard. Milat's cruelty was evident in the state of the victims' remains. Most showed signs of extensive torture before death, including multiple stab wounds and gunshot wounds. The use of knives and firearms highlighted his sadistic tendencies, as he took pleasure in inflicting pain. Victims were bound or immobilized, indicating that Milat wanted full control over the situation. The deliberate placement of the bodies in shallow graves suggested he wasn't trying to conceal his crimes completely, possibly relishing the idea of discovery. In 1992, a group of orienteers stumbled upon 2 bodies in Belanglo State Forest. This discovery led to an intensive police investigation. Over the next year, 5 more bodies were found, all with similar patterns of brutality, confirming the work of a serial killer. In 1993, a breakthrough came when Paul Onions, a British backpacker, came forward. He recounted a terrifying encounter from 1990 where a man offered him a ride but later pulled a gun on him. Onions managed to escape and provided a detailed description of the assailant, leading police to Ivan Milat. Police arrested Milat at his home in May 1994. Inside, they found a trove of evidence linking him to the murders, including camping gear, clothing, and weapons belonging to the victims. His family's properties also contained further incriminating items. In 1996, Ivan Milat stood trial for the murders. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence, including ballistic matches and personal items of the victims found in Milat's possession. Milat's chilling lack of remorse became a focal point of the trial. Milat was convicted of 7 murders and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He maintained his innocence until his death, claiming he was framed, but the evidence painted a clear picture of his guilt. Even in prison, Milat remained unrepentant. He engaged in disruptive behavior, including hunger strikes and self-inflicted injuries, to protest his incarceration. He became a notorious figure, often attracting media attention. Authorities believe Milat may be responsible for additional murders. Several unsolved cases of missing persons and backpackers in Australia bear similarities to his crimes, though no further charges were brought against him. Milat's crimes deeply shook Australia, casting a shadow over its reputation as a safe haven for travellers. It also led to increased safety measures for tourists and greater public awareness about the dangers of hitchhiking. Milat's case inspired fears of copycat crimes, with his nephew Matthew Milat later convicted for a murder eerily reminiscent of his uncle's methods in the same forest. Milat's story has been depicted in films, documentaries and books, including the infamous Wolf Creek series, which drew inspiration from his heinous crimes. Ivan Milat remains a symbol of unthinkable evil, a man who preyed on the innocence and trust of young adventurers. While his death in 2019 closed one chapter, the scars he left on the victims' families and the Australian public are permanent. What are your thoughts on the Ivan Milat case? Share your views in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell for more true crime stories that uncover the dark side of humanity.